In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Well, if you want to understand the mentality of these people, listen to what Donald Trump said today at the White House when asked the question, if Biden wins, would there be a peaceful transfer of power? Listen.
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transfer of power after the election? There has been rioting in Louisville. There's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transfer of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transfer of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and you'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
What you're dealing with is, again, you're dealing with a thug here.
All right, folks, back to our Roll Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Tamika Mallory, co-founder of Until Freedom, they have been protesting there. Their team actually has moved to Louisville. She did not hold back in blasting the Attorney General of Kentucky.
You mentioned at the press conference, which I thought was quite interesting, that he's a black man. And as I laid and cried and hurt for Tamika Palmer and for Breonna Taylor and for Kenny Walker and for Janiyah, who we need to love up on, as I laid there and I thought about him saying he's a black man, I thought about the ships that went into Fort Monroe and Jamestown with our people on them over 400 years ago. And how there were also black men on those ships that were responsible for bringing our people over here. Daniel Cameron is no different than the sellout Negroes that sold our people into slavery.
She said it.
And helped white men to capture our people, to abuse them and to traffic them while our women were raped, while our men were raped by savages. That is who you are, Daniel Cameron. You are a coward, you are a sellout, and you were used by the system to harm your own mama, your own black mama. We have no respect for you. No respect for your black skin. Because all of our skin folk ain't our kin folk. And you do not belong to black people at all.
All right, folks, back to our Road Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Well, folks, Donald Trump was in Atlanta today unveiling his plan for Black America. It is called the Platinum Plan. Quite interesting. He presented this in front of a group of African Americans. He designates the KKK and Antifa as terrorist organizations, called for making lynching a national hate crime, and also they want to make Juneteenth a national holiday. Now, according to the plan, according to the campaign, the plan will increase access to capital in black communities by almost $500 billion and create 500,000 new black-owned businesses. Here's Donald Trump talking, y'all. And then, of course, when he's done, I will deconstruct this entire plan.
And I'm here today to announce a brand new plan to deliver more opportunity, more security, more fairness, and more prosperity to black communities. We call it the Platinum Plan. Platinum Plan. And that's a contract with black Americans, and it's going to be something that people talk about for a long time to come. If you vote Republican over the next 4 years, we will create 3 million new jobs for the black community. Open 500,000 new black-owned businesses. Increase access to capital in black communities by $500 billion. And this includes investing in community development, financial institutions, and minority depository institutions. Build up peaceful and safer urban neighborhoods with the highest standards of, and you know this, of policing. We want the highest standards. We have to have highest standards of policing. Bring even greater fairness to the justice system. We did criminal justice reform. We remember that. Even greater, we will create a national clemency project to right wrongful prosecutions and to pardon individuals who have reformed their life. You saw Alice, right? We love Alice. She had another 24 years to go. Can you believe it? She served 22 years. She had another 24 years to go. It was ridiculous. And she is a great woman. Create a ladder of opportunity for African American children by delivering school choice to every parent in America. So important. Give black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for their communities. Bring better and tailored health care to address the historic disparities that we've had for so many years. You know that. This includes investing in treatments for kidney disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, sickle cell disease, and maternal mortality. Advance home ownership and wealth building in the black community. Bring more manufacturing back to the USA, which we're doing anyway. And back to the inner cities, which have been largely forgotten, although not so much in the last 3 years when you get right down to it. Thank you. And Democrat policies that import low-wage foreign workers from overseas to replace black workers in our inner cities. Joe Biden cares more about the citizens of foreign countries than he does about black Americans living in our own country. I will always put Americans first, and that includes, very, very importantly, black Americans. And there's much more in our plan, which we're releasing today, so we'll get everyone a copy, and it's actually been very well received, and we appreciate that. The Platinum Plan is a bold vision that we can and really will achieve over the next 4 years, and we'll be able to do it, if not sooner. Unlike my opponent, I'm not a career politician, thank goodness. I get results, and I keep my promises.
Now, in the same thing, in the same deal, he talked about, how he has led this record investment that guarantees funding for HBCUs. All week, you've been seeing me rocking HBCU gear. Today, I'm representing Harris Stowe out of St. Louis. So, is he lying? Yeah, let's talk about this. First of all, let's talk about it with Dr. William Spriggs. He's the economist at Howard University, and Walter Kimbrough, president of Dillard University. Walter, I'm going to start with you. Okay, Donald Trump keeps touting how he has saved HBCUs, how he has made funding permanent for HBCUs so they don't have to keep coming back to Congress every year for asking money. You have been tweeting about this. You are an actual HBCU president, so I would think you probably have a good idea if this funding is permanent. Is what Donald Trump is saying false? Is it true? Is it false? Is it a flat out lie? What is it?
Flat out lie. And it just drives me crazy because particularly for the program that got funded, there are over half a dozen federally funded programs for HBCUs. He's talking about this one program that started as a pilot program by George W. Bush for 2 years. That program died when President Obama got to office, and everybody beat him up to say, look, you need to keep this money. So then President Obama comes back like, all right, I hear y'all. I'm going to make it a 10-year program. So it's a 10-year program.
Hold on. So hold on one second. That's first. It was a 2-year pilot program. You say it died, meaning it was over, meaning Congress had to reauthorize it. Okay.
Right.
First of all, that program, what is it and how much money are we talking about?
So it was a 2-year program for $85 million a year for HBCUs.
So $85 million that was shared with multiple HBCUs. $85 million.
$85 million.
Okay, go ahead.
$85 million. So then President Obama took that and made it a 10-year program, $85 million a year. And it also is additional money for minority serving institutions. So you'll hear some people say it's $200 million a year, but that includes the Hispanic serving and Asian Pacific and all of that. So it's a 10-year program. So it started to die, and people started lobbying to the Trump administration before in 2018 to say this program is about to die. We want to continue it. He let it die too. Alma Adams came back and wrote the new bill called the Future Act, which made it another 10-year program. And then wrestling with some of the Republicans, it ended up becoming a permanent bill, but they can still only fund it out for 10 years. So we'll wait to see what happens in 10 years. But as he said today, it's a 10-year program, $85 million a year, which is exactly the same thing that we had under President Obama. So
let's be clear. Again, I had Congressman Alma Adams on this show. This was not a plan that originated from the White House.
No, not at all.
It was not. Congressman Alma Adams, who also got with Republican Mark Walter from North Carolina, whose wife is a Winston-Salem State graduate. They were the co-chairs of the HBCU Congressional Caucus, drove that thing through. So when Trump is saying, I made it permanent, he's talking about a single program that's $85 million a year.
Exactly. That's all he's talking about. And when he takes credit for it, people will defend him and say he signed it. But this bill passed both the House and the Senate with a veto-proof majority. His signature was performative. Let's call it what it is, because there was no way he was going to veto something that was already veto-proof. So he didn't do anything. He never even tweeted about it saying, hey, let's support this. But after it passed, he's like thanking Lamar Alexander. He's thanking Ivanka, who's I don't think ever been to an HBCU function, and didn't even mention Alma Adams, which is the height of disrespect that he treats black people with.
And in fact, it passed the House. It was held up in the Senate by Lamar Alexander, and Congressman Alma Adams was putting pressure. Why? Because she came on this show talking about that very issue. Now, when he says record funding, I've increased HBCU fundings than what Obama did. True or false?
Also a lie. Funding has increased, but if you look at his budgets, which he called the skinny budget, which comes out the beginning of each year, every year his budget has either been flat for HBCUs, or the year when he cut out the $85 million, it was actually a cut. So he can't say I've even asked for more money. But his first year, he blew up everything because he had to have his military stuff. So he went in and they added to the budget like a 20% increase. That's when Rand Paul went on the floor of the Senate and raised hell saying, look, when Democrats are in control, the Republicans are the conservatives. But when Republicans are in control, there are no conservatives. He was pissed because now they're going to spend all this money. So when they increased the budget, Kamala Harris and Doug Jones came back to say, y'all got this new money. Let's give the HBCUs more money, which is a 14% increase. So when you hear people say he increased HBCU funding the first year by 14%, I can show you the letter where Kamala Harris and Doug Jones asked for that money. He didn't ask for it. If you look at his budget, it's zero increase. So he's taking credit for other people's work. And every year he comes back. flat budget for these programs, for the 2 Title III programs, for the minority, for the HBCU graduate programs, for the HBCU master's programs. They're always flat. And then the money goes up because Democrats come in and work with Republicans and increase the funding. And then he says, look what I did. I did all this for you. So all of that is a lie. None of his budgets support what he's saying now. Yes, the money went up, but he didn't ask for it.
Last point for you. I've had people who, oh my goodness, Kimbrough's making it up. There's a photo. You were one of the HBCU presidents who was here in D.C. when they took photos in the Oval Office. So it's not like you were not in the room.
Right. There is one photo that has me in it. Now, I'm not in most of them because when it went down and Omarosa said, we are going into the Oval Office, right then and there, I knew this is a setup. This is not good for us. And so I am actually in the back of the room next to the picture of Andrew Jackson. So in 90% of the pictures, you will not see me. I can show you a picture that shows that I was there, but I wasn't trying to be in those because now anytime there's a story and it's bad for black people, that's one of the pictures that they use. So
No. But the point I'm making is you were there. You know right. What was said. You were sitting there listening to it. And so when somebody says, that's just sour grapes. And also for the MAGA people, how long have you been an HBCU president?
I'm in my 16th year.
At 2 different institutions.
2 institutions. As
president. So that's for all the folks who say he don't know what he's talking about. He's sort of making this whole thing up. Anything else our audience needs to know about the truth about Donald Trump and HBCUs?
All of it is inflated. The things that he should take credit for. So, for example, Dillard was one of 4 institutions impacted by Hurricane Katrina. We had a loan that did get forgiven under this administration. Secretary DeVos worked on that. I was in meetings with her. They can take that as a win. They brought back Summer Pell. They can take that as a win. But there are other things that happen. We've lost the Perkins loan. We've had TRIO programs and Upward Bound programs lost from HBCU. So it's a mixed bag, but he always presents it as, I've done all this, I've saved you, when there are some losses that we've had as well. And then he made up some stories about things he did for us, like allowing faith-related institutions to get federal funding from the HBCU Capital Finance Program when we were already getting that money. He gave a speech last year in D.C. saying, I had all this change. So he made up a story, and then he never did an executive order to show that he did what he said he was going to do. So that's the problem.
Hold up. That was an executive order that he said he was going to do. What was that executive order supposed to be?
It was supposed to make sure that faith-based religious institutions affiliated HBCUs would be able to have access to the HBCU Capital Finance Program. But we already have access to that program. We're actually getting that money now. So when I heard the speech, I was like, what are you talking about? We already have access to this money. And so he says, I've done this for you, but then he doesn't go back and create an executive order to do what he said he was going to do anyway. So he made it up, and then he didn't follow through with a made-up executive order to fix the made-up problem.
Walter Kimbrough, President, Dillard University. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
All right, folks, we're going to further continue our deconstruction of this platinum plan with economist Dr. William Spriggs, of course, economist with the AFL-CIO, also Howard University. All right, Bill, so let's, first of all, it's an insult, the name of this, the Platinum Plan. I guess he thinks that's going to appeal to black folks who like diamonds, gold, and platinum. So let's just sort of deal with that. But I want to take this thing through, and I want to go one by one because I'm calling this a deconstruction for a reason because we did the exact same thing with Joe Biden's plan, where we went through this whole deal and we laid out exactly in terms of what it calls for. And so let's deal with this that he's touting. First of all, we're going to go to the first thing, 3 million jobs. He said, let's just pull the other graphic up, y'all, and we're going to switch between the two. So go there. First, 3 million new jobs for the black community. Did he say how that's going to happen?
No, he didn't. But let's remember he's in the hole because we have fewer jobs than when he took office right now. He
took office, black unemployment was 7.5%. It drops down to what, 5.1% in late 2019. Right now, black unemployment is what, 13%?
Yes. I don't count the drop because what counts is what's the score.
Right. So the point is,
I don't care that you tell me at halftime we were ahead.
Right. So it was 7.5% when you came in. It was here. Now it's 13%. So when you say I'm going to add 3 million new jobs, all you doing is talking about I'm going to replace what we've lost.
What he lost.
What he lost. Right. Since he want to claim everything. All right. Next one. He says create 500,000 new black-owned businesses. How?
He doesn't say how he's going to do it. If he doesn't address discrimination in lending, he can't. And we saw what his Treasury Department did. The payroll protection program rolled out, and black businesses were disproportionately hurt because their competitors got loans, they did not. And we know that within that short space of time, we lost a way disproportionate share of black jobs, while his Treasury Department did nothing. It took Congress to come back, reauthorize the PPP program, and direct that the money went to CDFIs, community development financial institutions, and minority depository institutions, so that the money would get to black businesses. $1 late.
But here's the other deal. But we've also we're losing.
He had an opportunity to just keep the number of businesses, and he failed.
We've been losing businesses because of COVID, and so when you say you're going to add 500,000, same thing. You're trying to add what we've actually lost. So let's go to the guys. Pull the next one up. Put the graphic up, please. Come on. I need the graphic. Come on, no, the graphic, please. Thank you. Thank you. That one. Increase access to capital in black communities by almost 500 billion. Okay, but here's the piece. Y'all, read the details. Come down to my graphic, please. Where the 500 billion comes from is seeking infrastructure funding that will lead to widespread growth in the annual 500 billion federal contracting opportunities. He's talking about the same money. So
that's right.
That's not 500 new billion. He's like, oh, I'm just touting what is over here in the infrastructure plan.
But that's infrastructure. That's not to black businesses.
Precisely. Keep going. That's just again walking people through. Next item on the graphic. All right. Safe urban neighborhoods with the highest policing standards. That's a waste of my time. But you know what? Let me just do this here. Now, let me go to my deal here. So let me go right down to that one. So here's what's quite interesting about that. Because this is the detailed plan that I have right here. So he says that, y'all gonna love this one. National Clemency Program, got that. This is right here. Restore safety to America's great cities by working with police departments. I'm gonna bring in Rob and Amisha right here as well. And accountable models of policing, including diversity training and accreditation standards. Rob, how can you say you're going to have diversity training for cops when you just got rid of diversity training on the federal level?
I was going to make that point. You know, he has an executive order getting rid of diversity and training, and he has an executive order where he doesn't want us to tell the truth about history. He says, so we don't want to deal with the fact that we've had racism. And he says this line in his executive order that says, you know, the Civil War dealt with this, and people are acting as if we were built on a racist country. We were, and we still haven't gotten rid of a lot of things, and we need to deal with it and really tell the truth about it. So he's not even telling the truth of history. He doesn't care about diversity and training. He's doing this to make some white people, and I guess the few black people that are supporting him, feel like they have something to talk about. Like, okay, we know you're saying racist stuff. We know you've done all this stuff. So we got to have something. And now he can just give them this talking point, like, I'm going to help black people by doing this. The man has been there for 4 years, and you're going to tell me 45 days before the election you got your black plan? You can say black people now? I mean, I'm just saying.
Amisha, I'm looking here again under this whole deal of fueling access to capital for black-owned businesses. He says increase opportunities for small business lending and technical assistance through community development financial institutions in order to grow business and create generational wealth opportunities with over $400 billion in lending. Then he says, examine alternative ways to build credit, including rent, utilities, and phone bills. Make the Minority Business Development Agency permanent. Appoint its leader to the Assistant Secretary of Commerce level. Create a sub-office of African American Affairs and engage with private sector advisors to ensure real-world plans and solutions, increase the number of black-owned contracting businesses, financial services entities, and private equity investment funds through regulatory reform, and up to $40 billion in government funding alongside traditional private investment, advance lending relationships with financial institutions, particularly those businesses who weren't able to participate in PPP, host senior executives from major financial institutions on a quarterly basis to advance new and equitable lending programs for black communities. All of this stuff that he said that he wants to do in the second term, he hasn't done in the first term.
He could have done it first. He could have done it at first. Hell, he could have ran on it in the first term. He did not. There was nothing stopping President Trump, who also, be mindful of people, his party also has the Senate. He could have done this immediately, long ago. Like, there is nothing stopping him from doing any of this. But to the point mentioned a minute ago, we have a president who is now listing off things that run in direct contrast to the things that he says on his stump speeches. He's not somebody who cares about race and equity. He thinks of those things as unpatriotic. And if you talk about them, then you're not American. He does not care about lending practices that disproportionately affect African Americans. And we've seen that time and time again. He won't even have a sit-down conversation with the NAACP or the National Urban League when both of them and their CEOs have spoken to these issues directly and have plans that I believe it looks like he lifted literally out of those plans some of the language that he's using within this new, very odd framework of this platinum plan, which sounds a little sketchy in and of itself. But I think that what President Trump is doing, and it's not to get the black vote, he already knows that that's not really going to happen for him. What he is trying to do is to mitigate some of the disastrous commentary that he's had that makes some white people feel uneasy, particularly some white suburban women. So when you talk about there being this racist rhetoric and you talk about there being, all of the issues that the Black Lives Matter movement has brought to the forefront, this is a president who now is saying through means testing and through hearing a lot of what, the white people in the street who are holding BLM signs are saying is that, hey, maybe if I put together this plan and bring out some trinkets of black people to Atlanta, because be mindful, the majority of the folks who were at that Atlanta gathering today weren't from Atlanta, they flew in from other places, then maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to show to good-meaning white people who otherwise would not, be fervent supporters of his, that I'm trying to do something. Be mindful. He could have done this months ago. He could have done this years ago. If he wanted to actually implement these plans, he could have done it. He knew that the PPP loans, by the way they were designed, they were not meant to help black businesses.
But I want to go through this because, again, I'm looking here and I'm just sort of laughing, Bill, because he says grow minority-owned businesses with additional tax cuts to stimulate hiring and investment. Bill, have the tax cuts overall for all of America, have they stimulated hiring and investment?
No, the economy actually slowed after the passage of his tax credit. So when you look at the growth of black employment, it was already underway when President Obama was president. And so what you look at is a path that actually slowed, and of course now it collapsed on him. But the Minority Business Development Agency is under his control. He doesn't need the Senate or Congress to do some of the things that he mentioned there. Instead, he undermined that agency. He gutted that agency. So for him to now say, oh, but if I get reelected, I'm going to do something different, as if he didn't undermine it before. And the PPP, as I mentioned, he knew that it was failing black businesses. That was directly under the control of the Treasury. He did nothing. It was only when Congress stepped in and reauthorized the additional amount of funds and directed them explicitly to minority-owned businesses that you saw the PPP program respond. He had his first time at bat. He whiffed. He totally missed the ball. The more damaging thing, he says, is later in this plan when it comes to black home ownership.
No, hold on, wait. Hold on, wait. I'm going to get to that. Hold on. I'm going to take it by section. In his plan, he says, encourage onshoring and development of domestic manufacturing to increase supply chain, business development, and employment. Sounds great. Has manufacturing jobs, have they increased or decreased under Trump?
They've decreased, and in key states, Ohio and Michigan, the auto industry has, in fact, stalled and faltered under his control.
So today,
the steel jobs that he promised, right, because of his war that he declared was going to get us back jobs by his reckless use of tariffs, did not, in fact, generate new jobs in that industry. So his track record on that is that this is not materialized. He totally bungled the whole world atmosphere when it came to trade when he attacked the Paris Accord, and instead of using the green economy as a way to leverage the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and actually get us rules that would benefit manufacturing, he went in the opposite direction, undermined the whole credibility of all the exercise, and we've lost jobs under him.
Right. So in his speech, he touted, "Oh, I'm going to." He lied in his speech because I listened to all of it, saying we brought jobs back home, we've increased manufacturing. That hasn't happened. Now let's go to the education piece here. Federal, state, and local community partnership to close failing schools to replace them with full school choice and education opportunity to put American parents back in control over their children's future. Well, the reality is you can't on the federal level, you can't close schools. Those are local decisions. It's not going to happen. I'm a supporter of school choice, but what he's laying out, okay, remember, during the campaign, he announced his school choice plan at a failing charter school in Cleveland, Rob, that had a score of an F that was founded by the founder of K-12. And I said, it's pretty stupid to announce a plan at a failing charter school. Well, that's how dumb he was. Continue to protect the vital role of HBCUs. That's it. It's a line. Don't know what the hell that means. Increase the amount of Pell Grants and allow for vocational employment and second change homecomers. I don't even know what the hell that is. Has he increased Pell Grants, Bill?
He did restore access during the summer, but as you heard from President Kimbrough, the rest of what he's done to students is to undermine the program because he's cut all the support for their parents. So this is a great letter that Leslie Baskerville has written on behalf of NAFIO in response to this repeated claim that Trump wants to make, that the little bit that got added, and as President Kimbrough pointed out to you, not because Trump asked for it, not because he asked for it, but the things he did ask for undermined their parents. The things that made it harder for their parents to get money, to survive, and now to have jobs. He undermined our students in so many ways that his efforts really made it more difficult for our students, not easier. And so simply adding the summer takes away the Perkins loans that you heard President Kimbrough mention. Those Perkins loans are the ones of the job training that you just mentioned in that sentence. He attacked the Perkins loan and took them away. So to say I'm going to do something by bringing them back, okay, but you destroyed it. So I'm going to give you credit 4 years from now for putting back what you took away. That wouldn't make sense.
I love this one here under healthcare, Rob. He lays out all this sort of stuff: reduce costs, opportunity to be in charge of your own healthcare and choose your own doctor, eliminate long-standing healthcare disparities. Really, that's a single line. No other detail there. Investments into the cause and cures of kidney disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, sickle cell disease, maternal mortality, and other diseases that disproportionately affect African-American populations. But he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, Rob.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you already beat me to the point there. And this is just like, do you remember, Roland and Amisha, do you guys remember Trump Steak? Do you remember Trump Airlines?
Yep.
Okay, well, most people won't, and that's because none of it worked. It all crashed, and it was all bullshit. This is what this is. So I'll just sum up what this plan is. It's Trump's way of just making it seem like he's doing something to not be racist, that he actually cares about black people, to make some white people in swing states feel as if they can be justified in voting for him. And maybe he's not a racist. No, he definitely is a racist. He's a con man. He's the same person he's been. So don't fall for it. There's nothing here. It's a nothing burger.
Now we're getting to the end of it. Prosperous black communities. And Bill, we'll go here. Champion federal policy reforms to advance home ownership initiatives. In his speech, Bill, he talked about how African Americans enjoyed the most prosperous moments in history under him. He said black home ownership was at its highest rates. No, that was under Bill Clinton. He talked about the same thing when it came to black wealth. No, it hasn't been under him as well. What the hell have they done with home ownership in the last 3.5 years? I've seen nothing.
No, but worse than that, the number one reason we don't own homes is because of discrimination in the housing market. And he undermined the Fair Housing Act. He took as many steps as possible within the time he's been in office to fulfill that other thing he's been saying to that other crowd. Remember how he told everybody if you get Joe Biden, you're going to have Cory Booker as a neighbor. That was his signal that I am going to continue the policies I have been pursuing to resegregate, intensify the segregation of American housing. And that is what I'm going to deliver to you suburban voters. So his real actions stand in the direct way. It's the wall that keeps us from being able to own homes. He's making that wall taller. He's not tearing down the wall.
Amisha, he says here, go to my iPad, make Juneteenth a national holiday. Do you recall when that could have been done in July? And it was Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin who refused to allow unanimous consent to make it a federal holiday. I don't recall Donald Trump saying, stand down, Senator Johnson. I don't recall a single tweet by saying, make this happen. Again, this is bullshit.
No, you're absolutely correct. Not only did he not say stand down, this is a president who acted as though he didn't know, and maybe he didn't know what Juneteenth was until after his plans to hold a racist rally were actually shot down. I think that a lot of this is basically word vomit, to say the least. It's President Trump literally Googling what Black people want and then stealing from Black organizations. Like I said, the National Urban League, the Congressional Black, the CBCI has actually pushed a lot of this stuff, the Congressional Black Caucus Institute. We've also seen it from organizations like the NAACP. But if you do a quick Google search of the top things that matter to Black people, basically all he did was threw in these benchmarks that don't have any full or inclusive plan of actually how to get them done. He's not being informed by actual African Americans who are leaders in education, who are leaders in healthcare, who are people who are leaders in housing, people who are actually fighting the good fight out here and have some very specific means of trying to make things better for African Americans across this country. None of this is informed rhetoric. These are empty promises, again, that he's not using or even directing towards Black people. He's directing this towards white people in swing states because he assumes that because there are so many white people who locked arms with Black people during the Black Lives Matter protests and the George Floyd protests, that now he has to say something because in those states, things are very tight for him. That's what he's doing. This is a last-ditch effort. There isn't a single thing on this list that he couldn't have done years ago if he wanted to do it.
Rob, prosecute the KKK and Antifa as terrorist organizations and make lynching a national hate crime. First, the FBI director, Christopher Wray, just testified the other day that Antifa is not an organization, it's an ideology. Two, make lynching a national hate crime. I'm sorry, do you recall Donald Trump telling Senator Rand Paul to stand down, who was blocking, again, lynching from a national hate crime, a bill that Senator Tim Scott co-sponsored with Booker and Harris? I don't recall Donald Trump saying jack. So when it could have been made a national hate crime, where was Trump?
He was doing what Trump does, saying some other bullshit that doesn't matter. I mean, this is what the man does. I mean, he figures out what to do with the moment and what can I say at this moment to make some people believe me and hope that it works. I think Misha said it best. This word vomit. He's just throw some shit up against the wall, see if it sticks. I mean, this is what he's doing, right? And he's just taking some ideas and then letting people go with these talking points to say, see, I'm not racist. You can talk about these things. Never mind all the things that I've said. Never mind the fact that I encourage somebody to go out and kill some people again in Wisconsin. We're not going to forget that. That's one example out of many. Never mind that he called African countries shithole countries. Never mind. We can go through. I could be here all day. I mean, but it would take all the time in your show. I mean, the man is as divisive as they come. He's toxic. He's racist. He's a horrible leader, and there's nothing he can do to change that. Only we can change that. And hopefully
Bill, this is interesting. Fuel black. Go to my iPad. Fuel Black farmers and access to healthy foods to address food disparities, and then favorable trade. First of all, they didn't even proofread this. Favorable trade deals to bring back manufacturing jobs and health Black contractors, farmers, inventors, and consumers. I don't even know what that is, Bill.
Let's guess maybe they meant help.
Right. I mean help, not health. But fuel Black farmers and access to health. Black farmers don't need access to healthy foods?
I'm going to assume that what he means is he's going to help Black farmers get access to urban markets so that they can have more channels for supplying food
I'm sure John Boyd would laugh at that one, but go ahead.
But again, he's had these opportunities. He's been in charge. He's had an opportunity to do all of these things. In fact, if you look at what he's saying there, not only did he rip it off from the Congressional Black Caucus in many points, but these are things that the House passed that the Senate failed on. And in essence, what he's saying is Nancy Pelosi is a good Speaker of the House. That's what he's saying. And so the next time you hear him say anything bad about Nancy Pelosi and how she's a communist and going to turn the American system into socialism, you just say, well, Mr. President, on when it came to black people, you thought Nancy was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
So I find this one very interesting, Amisha. We only got two left. Defend religious liberty and African-American churches that lift the conscience of our nation. Really? The man don't even go to church.
He doesn't go to church. I would like for them to describe, what this actually means, because at the end of the day, I think that this goes back to him trying to speak to a specific audience, and that specific audience ain't black people. So when he's talking about religious liberties, when he's talking about bringing these things to the forefront, he's not talking about black churches, because we know that when people were shot in the black church just a few years ago, he really showed very little concern whatsoever and found good people on both sides of a situation. So no, I don't think that this president gives two sense about the black church at all, nor does he care about faith and religion. But I think that he is speaking to an audience, again, that is not black people. He's speaking to an audience and trying to lean in on those swing states, but he's speaking to white women specifically right now. The same white women who he's done this entire campaign cycle of trying to make afraid of black people in general. So when we're having these conversations, I think that it's very interesting, his timing of releasing this plan, but also the fact that, it comes out literally within a day of us hearing about the Breonna Taylor case. He is very strategic in trying to be mindful of what he thinks that those people in the suburbs actually want to hear, but he doesn't have any real intent on making any of this happen at all.
And of course, right here, the last one, collaborate with cities and counties to address mental illness and substance abuse. Really, Bill? My God, you're going to collaborate? No, I think probably what those cities and counties would say is, where in the hell is the money?
Well, and again, this is the defund the police movement, right? The whole movement is, why are all of these funds going to the police when the biggest encounters that disturb us the most too often involve people who have actual mental health crises and their families are desperate to try and get help? They call the police instead of being able to call mental health experts. So, he criticized people want to defund the police, but that's where the money would come from. The money would come from, don't fund the police to do this, fund the professionals who know what they're doing when they encounter someone in a crisis. That's what this is saying. So he doesn't disagree with the people that he's been sniping at and saying sounded ignorant.
And of course, I want to do this here, Rob. This is from the National Alliance on Mental Illness from August of 2019. That they lay out here that Donald Trump was going to be slashing funds for mental health care.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about what, facts and things that actually he's doing, not words that he's saying. These things rarely align when it comes to Donald Trump. So yes, he doesn't care about mental health funding. He doesn't care about black businesses. He cares about getting reelected, keeping power, and making those who have supported him have something to talk about. They have nothing to talk about other than a horrible record of leadership and I'm sure the most divisive president we've ever seen.
Folks, I did reach out to the Trump campaign, sent an email to two individuals asking, did any of them, they make anyone available to come on this show to actually discuss and defend this plan? No response. Bill Spriggs, I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, folks, back to our Road Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov. Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Folks, 42 days until Election Day, but the reality is we've already started voting. Early voting has also been taking place in various states as well. Ballots have gone out 2 weeks ago in North Carolina. We want you to please go to vote.org. I cannot implore you enough. I've had multiple people send me text messages and emails as well stating that they thought they were registered until they checked, and now they realize that they have been purged. And so please go to vote.org to check that first. If you have not registered, the deadlines are coming up. You must get registered, folks. This is huge. I'm telling you, you do not want to be waiting. Here are the deadlines. 28 days before November 3rd, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, New Mexico, Ohio, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. 20 to 27 days before the election. Delaware, Kansas, Massachusetts, Missouri, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Oregon, Virginia, West Virginia. 15 days before the election, Alabama, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, South Dakota. Folks, that is look, we can sit here and talk all day. We can sit here and say, well, hopefully Murkowski, hopefully Romney, hopefully Susan Collins will do the right thing. When you put your trust in them, you got problems. Let's go to my panel. Gary Chambers, Jr., publisher of the Rouge Collection. Dr. Avis Jones-DeBeaver, political analyst. Mustafa Santiago Ali, PhD and former senior advisor for environmental justice with the EPA. This, Avis, is, and again, I have been ringing the alarm and yelling and screaming and been doing this since the moment Trump got elected. All of these damn people out here who was saying that bullshit in 2016, leave the top of the ticket open. Hey, Trump and Hillary, they're the same. They're no different. Guess what? I said it then. I don't care what you had to say about Hillary Clinton and super predators and her emails. She was not going to appoint the same type of judges as Donald Trump. And now we know, Bill Clinton has already said it, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was hoping Hillary was going to win and she can get replaced by Hillary Rodham Clinton. That didn't happen. Trump won. Some Obama folks were trying to get her to retire in 2015, saying, hey, don't chance it. She chose not to. Now we're at this juncture here, and look, it comes down to, look, the only way you can really impact Collins, Murkowski, and Romney's if you've got a massive blowout in November where they say, hey, this is going to be grossly unfair to the American people for us to do this in a lame duck session. Otherwise, McConnell's going to push this through, and they're going to have a 6-3 advantage on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, this is the doomsday scenario that we're facing right now. And I completely agree with you. I am still furious. Call me petty, but I'm just going to have to be petty, okay? I am still furious with people who oftentimes, people who have huge platforms. The lack of responsibility that they showed in 2016 is absolutely astounding. And the only thing that's worse than the lack of responsibility they showed by spreading misinformation and potentially influencing God knows how many people to not take advantage of the right that their forefathers fought and died for, and ultimately find ourselves at the place that we're here now, on the verge of losing the Supreme Court for a good 40 years, on top of Black people being twice as likely to die of coronavirus than white folks, and on and on and on and on. The only thing that makes me even more mad than that is the cowardice that we're seeing now by those same people for not even being able to admit that they were wrong, and then to encourage other people today to not make the same mistakes that they made in 2016. You know, none of us are perfect. All of us make mistakes, but adults can admit to their mistakes. And then they learn from their mistakes. And then they share what they've learned with other people so that we don't make the same mistake over again. But by sitting here in 2020 and acting like 2016 never happened, acting like they never said what they said, and allowing other people and not saying anything when we have a new cohort of ridiculousness in this era, telling people basically to do the same thing that they told people to do in 2016, and then not to say anything about that is unforgivable. We need to understand what's on the ballot right now, what's at stake right now. We are facing a situation where it's not only going to impact our lives, this is going to impact our grandchildren's lives. This is not an easy fix. And so what we need to do now is everything humanly possible to make sure that it stops. I don't care what it is. It's everything. It's being in the streets. It's calling your senator. It's voting at massive levels so that there is no room for equivocation in November. A humiliating defeat is what we have to deliver at the polls. And that requires that we don't fall for the same foolishness that far too many fell for in 2016.
I'm real clear, Gary, in terms of making demands of any candidate. I'm real clear in terms of laying out an agenda. But I'm also very clear on opening my damn eyes and surveying the field. It's sort of like if I played football and I'm sitting here as a middle linebacker and all I'm doing is looking at the quarterback. I ain't paying attention to nobody else. I might get my behind beat because I'm not surveying the entire field. The reality is this here, and this goes for ADOS, FBA, Bernie Bros, every group you can imagine. I don't care who they are. This is real simple. If you actually say you want reparations, you ain't getting it with a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. You ain't getting it with 300 conservative federal judges. You're not getting it. You're not getting environmental protection. You're not getting voting rights. I mean, we can go down the line of all the stuff that your ass not gonna get if the Republicans stay in control of the United States Senate. Period.
Well, that's all of that's facts, Roland. And you know, elections have consequences. And I think that it was short-sighted and foolish of anybody to, one, not vote in 2016 and to believe that Republicans, for whatever reason, will not get out and support their candidate. You know, I concur with the sister. I think it's foolish. And as somebody that's 35, right, in that age demographic where my generation is not as active in voting, you know, many of them don't want to hear, the age-old things about who sacrificed. But the real deal is you are screwing yourself by not voting, right? Because when you talk about all that's at stake, when you talk about the future of education for your children, when you talk about the future of healthcare in your community, when you talk about your ability to vote, right, if you so choose to, when you become a property owner, start paying some taxes on some property, right? And then your concerns are on the ballot, I think people will then take this more seriously. But when you look at what happens, the courts are where major decisions are made. And it's also, it can be weaponized against us, right? The courts can be weaponized against us at any point. And conservative justices who believe that the Black Lives Matter movement is Marxist and all of these different things like that, they will take that ideology to the bench and they will use it against us. And so for those of you who want to be able to peacefully, freely protest when the government has done something against your will, for those of you who want to marry whomever you love, for those of you who want to be able to have civil rights protections, to live where you want to live without being discriminated against, this is where it happens at. It happens at the bench. And so if there was anything for us to be concerned about as young Black people, it is how do we stabilize this thing by showing up? And leaving this to the older generation is how we got here. If you're not satisfied with the nominees at hand, the primary process is where we do that part, okay? We have gone past that, we lick our wounds and we move on. The bigger question for me is, are we gonna be mad at ourselves because we didn't go vote right now, or are we going to strategize and do the work over the next 4 years to ensure that we have a candidate of our choosing? It's not about, like you said, Roland, this is the long game. And so if we're going to play the long game, we got to be dedicated, we got to be organized, and we got to strategize for the long game. And you don't just pick your toys up and go home because you didn't win in the primary. We got work to do.
Mustafa, I had a young brother text me over the weekend, tweet me over the weekend. He said, see, y'all older folks, y'all the reason why this happened. I said, bro, let me be real clear with you. I said, I'm 51. I'll be 52 in November. I said, you're in your 20s. I said the likelihood of me hitting 90 is rare. Not many people hit 90. Let's just be real clear. I said, your ass gonna be 60. I said, so you might want to invest in this thing to see. I said, it sounds dumb and I'm sorry, it sounds dumb for anybody 18 to 35 to say, well, y'all need to pick better people for me. No, your ass need to be picking people for you. Everybody got a role in this. And so for all these folks, Mustafa, who you talk to, who care about the environment, I'm like, yo, you better understand what's here. Donald Trump has put in significant anti-environmental people who don't care about drilling in offshore. They don't care about drilling in natural parks. These folks want to rape the earth in order to make another buck.
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, what we are talking about is the infrastructure in our communities. We're talking about the infrastructure in our country as well. And when you don't get engaged in this process, you're just giving away the opportunity for you to actually make real change. I don't because I work with all kinds of young people across the country. I don't let folks get away with talking about, well, older folks made the decision or older folks need to make the decisions. I'm like, if you don't see somebody who represents what you believe in, my first question to you is, why didn't you run? Why didn't you get your friends together and identify somebody who you have trust in to run? So I just don't allow that conversation because it's a cop-out that we use whenever we don't want to actually get up off of our butts and actually get engaged in the process and have to do more than something that lasts for an hour or a couple of hours. Folks need to understand, as folks have shared, that you are literally playing with your life and the life of folks in your community. Whoever it is you care about your community, find someone that you care about in your family or your community. It could be your grandma, it could be your auntie, it could be your niece. All of those folks are counting on not only you voting, but understanding the power that exists inside of that vote up and down the ticket in all kinds of different positions. We're talking about the Supreme Court, but we also understand, and we've talked numerous times on this show, if you're tired of the police doing some of the things that you've seen, if you're tired of district attorneys not doing the right thing, get engaged in the process, because your vote can actually help to change what's going on in that situation. If you're not willing to do that, then you just have to be quiet, take the ass whippings that you're going to get from the police and other folks, and excuse my language for being as real as I know how to be, because your vote can really help to change these dynamics. And we keep allowing people to pimp us by not allowing, ourselves to get engaged in the conversation and think that what we do doesn't matter. It matters when we do it in numbers. It matters when we do it through an intelligent set of actions.
All right, folks, back to our Brother Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding of services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.
All right, folks, the city of Norfolk, Virginia, they are using federal tax breaks to destroy historically black neighborhoods. That is a story that was reported in Bloomberg. Officials in Norfolk, they made plans to demolish St. Paul's public housing and replace it with new developments in the mid-1990s. But the funds were not available. The Opportunity Zones program changed that and provided the funds. Now, Norfolk is one of 3 cities in the country to receive a grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The grant will accelerate the replacement of public housing. Now, Norfolk hopes to leverage its $30 million haul into $150 million, including Opportunity Zone eligible money. There are promises that departing residents would be taken care of, but history has shown that's not always the case. Joining me now to discuss how urban renewal displaces poor people, largely black, is Caleb Newby, an investigative reporter for Bloomberg News. Now, Caleb, Donald Trump and Ben Carson and Republicans, they tout opportunity zones, and $75 billion going to these areas. And I've sent emails to the White House saying, well, I want to know, are black people actually getting that? What is that money going to? And what I keep hearing from people, that is really gentrification, that it's investments that are going into these areas, not actually benefiting those residents at all, but benefiting developers.
It's an interesting point. The thing about the Opportunity Zone program is there's 9,000 different census tracts across the country that are designated opportunity zones. Some of them are poor. Some of them are already gentrifying. Some could be gentrifying in the future. And trying to figure out exactly how much of which there is incredibly difficult, because there's actually no official public reporting via Treasury or really anywhere else to help us suss out, exactly where funds are going, and as you raise, to what extent local communities benefit.
So 1 second. So they released this report shortly before the Republican convention, supposedly stating how great these opportunity zones are going. Y'all looked at Norfolk, Virginia, and what does it reveal?
Norfolk, Virginia reveals that, as intended by the Opportunity Zone program, state and local governments can basically deploy those funds however they want. And in Norfolk, they have these predominantly Black public housing communities near downtown that since the 1990s or so, they've been trying to find a way to redevelop them, essentially. But because it was public land and everything else, it was hard to find financing that worked. And this Opportunity Zone money, along with that grant that you discussed, is allowing them to do something that they've wanted to do for a very long time. And obviously, as you can imagine, it's an incredibly contentious issue in that town.
So again, this is the thing. Look, as somebody, I covered housing early in my career at the county government for the Austin American Statesman. Also was part of my portfolio when I covered City Hall for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. In all of these years, all we always hear, redevelopment. And all these folks, they tout that, and redevelopment coming in, mixed-use housing. They're going to come in with stores and Walmarts and Whole Foods and Targets and all these different stores. And we're going to have these restaurants. And you start going on. And I remember when I was in Chicago, I'm sitting there and I'm going, who the hell can afford to live in all of these townhomes that are $3 and $4 and $5 and $6 and $7, $800,000? And you see that, and now in cities like Washington, D.C., and so many others, that's who they're targeting. And the people who seem to be making off like bandits are the developers. And what they do is they sell or pimp out politicians who go, yeah, but you can get reelected on just how energetic this part of town is. Used to be run down, now it's thriving. But the people who live there don't have affordable housing.
So that really is the rub, right? There was a period in American history through the late 40s, 50s, 60s when these sort of public housing developments really became a thing. And then starting in the 80s, pushing through to the 90s, privatization became the order of the day. And in between, of course, you had white flight from the urban cores of cities out of the suburbs, you creating fiscal crises for cities, and then disinvestment in these public housing developments. So the question naturally, of course, is would they have gone into disrepair had that not happened? So now you, exactly as you say, that private housing often is not affordable for the people who were in the public housing before. And to a certain extent, depending on the city you're talking about, that's intentional, right? Because they see what they describe as decentralization of poverty as essentially a good. And it's sometimes believed that they actually don't want everybody who lived there before to come back, even in the selling of a redevelopment plan.
And when you talk about Norfolk, here's a city 47% white, 43% black, and I keep going just back to the most basic question. When y'all looked at it, who are the people being most impacted by this development? They're destroying black neighborhoods, correct?
Tidewater Gardens and the other two neighborhoods that make up St. Paul's are overwhelmingly black, approaching 100% depending on the block, and overwhelmingly poor as well. So that is absolutely the demographic, and that's not the same numbers as Norfolk as a whole.
What should be the lesson that we get out of, again, the whole great pitch, opportunity zones. And again, they sound great and wonderful. But I always say, you got to follow the money. At the end of the day, because when you listen to the pitch, what it sounds like is, We're going to be investing these dollars into these neighborhoods where you have existing businesses to help people there who may want to start their own business, to also improve the housing in those areas. That's not actually what we see happen, correct?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to offer any lessons, but it is certainly true that trying to redevelop public housing developments in an equitable way is a challenge, I'd say, for just about any city. The question really is this private-public partnership framework that has been, the preference of cities all over the country basically since the mid-1990s, really the way to go.
All right, then. Well, look, a great story. Folks should check it out. Bloomberg News. Caleb Newby, thank you very much for your work. Hopefully that we'll get more information on these opportunity zones, exactly what that investment is, where is it going, who is it benefiting, because you're right. Again, look, I've asked, the White House won't even respond to those questions because, frankly, they don't want to respond to those questions. And these are tax breaks. These are folks who are actually, on the taxpayer dime benefiting from that. But in the end, if the people are not truly benefiting and only a handful of rich developers, that's a problem.
Thanks for having me, Roland.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Hold on. All right, folks at Seek.com, Black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They are a virtual reality company. Of course, you can check out their content at Seek.com. You can do so, of course, with these virtual reality headsets. So what it does is it allows for you to actually drop your cell phone right into this headset right here, close it up. Then you can actually watch the content in virtual reality. Just simply put this thing on, and that's what you can do, of course. And then you can watch it, and it seems like you're literally right there in the room. So pretty cool device here. You can actually get this device at Seek.com, Seek.com. They also have these 360-degree 4D headphones. These headphones right here. They give out absolute great sound, great bass as well. They have Bluetooth. They also have a headset that you can use for gamers as well. So another great headset. So you can get this as a gift for someone or for yourself. All you got to do is go to Seek.com, Seek.com. Use our promo code RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020 in order to get you a discount on these devices. And if you do so, you will be, of course, you will be helping Roland Martin Unfiltered as well. And so we certainly appreciate Seek being a partner here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced a bill that would mandate criminal charges and increase jail time for protesters. The bill is called the Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting and Law Enforcement Protection Act. Protesters could be charged with first, second, or third-degree felony for actions such as blocking roadways, disrupting restaurants, or toppling monuments. The act states that drivers would not be liable, quote, for injury or death caused if fleeing for safety from a mob. Representative Chevron Jones, along with other statewide elected officials and community leaders, held a virtual news conference to oppose this Governor DeSantis proposal. Representative Jones joins us right now. Representative Jones, what the hell happened to the First Amendment?
Well, I don't know what's happened to the First Amendment. And you know what, Roland, to be clear, the governor knows that what he is doing is a total overreach, a blatant overreach in what he's doing. And the Republican Party know what they're doing. They are stacking the courts here in Florida, and they're stacking the courts nationally so this can go straight to the courts. It's irresponsible. And truth be told, Roland, I'm sure many have been following what's been going on here in Florida. This is a total deflect of the failed leadership of Governor DeSantis and what he has done here with coronavirus. And he comes with this press conference yesterday to speak out on what he plans to do in the next legislative session. His priorities totally out of whack.
Give people understanding the control the Republicans wield in Florida.
Right now, we have a Republican-ran House and Senate. We have about 3 seats that's up for grab that are winnable here within the Senate in Florida that we're set to win 2 of them, which will put us in a good position. But as far as fighting this fight that we have right now, Roland, our best bet is 1, through advocacy, is what we're doing right now. 2 is to winning these seats and electing Javier Fernandez and electing Patricia Sigmund to stop this for when it comes forth. And 3, making sure that people are not just voting just for in the presidential election. People in Florida have to vote on these down ballot candidates for state rep and for state senate and these other seats that's happening right now. That's the only part that we can do right now.
And again, we saw this with Amendment 4. Even though that passed, the Republican legislature goes in, passes a new law, and then that becomes the standard. And again, what's their lead? How many seats do they hold compared to Democrats in the House and the Senate?
Right now, we have 17 seats. The Democrats have 17 seats in the Senate. And the rest are Republicans, and there's only 40 seats within the Senate.
So the 40 seats in the Senate, Republicans control 23, Democrats have 17.
23 of them. That's correct.
In the House.
That's correct.
And in the House.
In the House. Well, now I don't know. There are a lot of seats that's up for grab. I'm walking out of the House, and I'm about to go over into the Senate. Right when I was there, we had 47, 48. In the House. They don't have a supermajority anymore, but they do have a majority. We do have enough votes in the House to be able to take some procedure votes. Now, here's the thing. If we lose 4 or 5 seats in the House, which will put us will put them back in the supermajority, there's no power to do anything. And I've been in that type of legislature before in my sophomore year.
And first of all, in this bill, no liability for drivers who hit people protesting?
So immunity for those individual who hit a protester. I mean, and let's take this to Charlottesville. This basically is a slap in the face to the family of people like Heather Heyer, who was hit in Charlottesville. And let's take a step further. That just this past spring, a Trump supporter hit a protester right in downtown Miami. And so now they must provide immunity for these individuals who perform these reckless acts. And Roland, let's be clear that the governor has had the chance to speak out on many situations here within the state of Florida, nationally, when it comes to police and their reaction to our community, and there's been nothing. We've invited him to our community. I even filed a bill to give the governor for us to begin to look at the gun violence within our community. Not once did the governor even answer the call for this opportunity to come and take a look at what he can do to help our community. Nothing. But yet still, you can have a press conference in Polk County and say that, you know what, we're not going to address what's happening with black men and women on the street. What I'm going to address is to make sure I protect individuals' property. And by mind you, there has not been not one instance in the state of Florida that would warrant the governor's press conference yesterday. It's a Donald Trump tactic he pulled.
The last question for you. Also, you have a bill that the folks are proposing to basically have the top 2 finishers in Florida as well. What's the status of that? Because that could also, and the way it's written, it's getting lots of support, but what that could very well do, that could even further solidify Florida Republicans controlling the Florida legislature. Explain to people what's happening with that.
Currently, right now, we have 6 amendments that is on the ballot come November, and one of those 6 amendments is Amendment 3, which would now allow for open primaries. Which would, for people who have open primaries like in Louisiana and California, it will allow the opportunity for everybody to vote in these elections, which means that it would give the Republicans the upper hand who have the most money to be able to fund the candidates of their choice. And what we can have is, prime example, when Adam Putnam, Republican, ran for governor, and Ron DeSantis ran for governor, if those were the top two picks, those in November, those would have been our choices for who we're voting for. It would have been two Republicans. So this is what they're trying to set up right now on Amendment 3. We are traveling the state. We are doing Zoom town halls. We're doing everything we can to tell individuals to vote no on Amendment 3. And let's be clear, if Amendment 3 passes, it puts African Americans in a very tough position that our black access seats will no longer exist, and seats like over in Senate District 37 would no longer be a black access seat. My seat, Senate District 35, would no longer be a black access seat. It'll be the person who has the most money who will be able to win. And that's the predicament that we're in. And this is the time for reapportionment right now.
All right, then. And again, that's why we need our people to fill out that census to ensure that we are counted, because that has a direct impact on black representation, not only in Congress, but also in state capitals across the country.
That's right. And it's so important. September 30th is the deadline. And I'm hoping that legislators and municipal commissioners and everyone are doing their part to make sure that they're getting people within their districts to fill that census out, because it's so important. And in Florida, if we do not come with those numbers, I was talking to Congresswoman Wilson yesterday, we have the potential of losing a congressional seat, and that seat can very well be hers.
All right, Representative Shervin Jones, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Hold on. All right, folks at Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They are a virtual reality company. Of course, you can check out their content at Seek.com. You can do so, of course, with these virtual reality headsets. So what it does is it allows for you to actually drop your cell phone right into this headset right here, close it up. Then you can actually watch the content in virtual reality. Just simply put this thing on, and that's what you can do, of course. And then you can watch it, and it seems like you're literally right there in the room. So pretty cool device here. You can actually get this device at Seek.com, Ceek.com. They also have these 360-degree 4D headphones. These headphones right here, they give out absolute great sound, great bass as well. They have Bluetooth. They also have a headset that you can use for gamers as well. So another great headset. So you can get this as a gift for someone or for yourself. All you got to do is go to Seek.com, Ceek.com. Use our promo code RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020, in order to get you a discount on these devices. And if you do so, you will be, of course, you will be helping Roland Martin Unfiltered as well. And so we certainly appreciate Seek being a partner here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.
All right, folks, let's talk about what's happening across the country. In Georgia, 1.1 million people requested vote-by-mail ballots, and the number continues to grow. 32% of the requests come from black voters. The Georgia Republican Party joined the Republican National Committee Tuesday in appealing a federal court decision requiring the counting of absentee ballots received up to 3 days after the November 3rd election. This is just one of the efforts to disenfranchise voters, specifically black voters across the country. Now, understand, folks, there are 40 days until Election Day. 40 days until Election Day. Republicans and Donald Trump, they are fighting every effort when it comes to counting as many ballots as possible. If you want to understand the mentality of these people, listen to what Donald Trump said today at the White House when asked the question, if Biden wins, would there be a peaceful transfer of power? Listen.
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election. And there has been rioting in Louisville. There's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and you'll have a very we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
What you're dealing with is, again, you're dealing with a thug here. The folks at The Atlantic dropped a story today that laid out exactly what it is that Republicans are trying to do. What they're doing right now is they are working. The Trump campaign is working with lawyers in the various states that where they want to challenge. They're planting the seeds. This is the headline in The Atlantic: the election that could break America. And what they're trying to do in this story here, okay, and this is what the lead says: there is a cohort of close observers of our presidential election, scholars and lawyers and political strategists, who find themselves in the uneasy position of intelligence analysts in the months before 9/11. And it goes on and on and on. What it lays out in this article is that what Republicans are trying to do is that if it is close in states, what they will then do is say, forget this, forget the counting, it's going on too long. We're going to declare that we know what the will of the voters are and choose the electors ourselves. Now, let me take you back to 2000. Folks, you have to remember, in Florida actually exposed for people the first time an understanding of the Constitution. First, there is no affirmative right to vote in the United States Constitution. When you hear people say voting is a right, that's simply not true. There is nothing in the Constitution that affirms that every voter has a right to vote. Because of amendments, it does say you cannot prevent folks from voting because of race or gender. So what people didn't realize was that when looking at the laws, the way this country was set up, I keep telling y'all beforehand, this is why civics is important. The country was set up for white men who own land to control the nation. So state legislatures actually have the power to choose electors. The Electoral College was a slavery compromise. And so they wanted to be able to control who became president. So what Donald Trump is doing is they are trying to work with Republican legislatures to say that if it's close in several states, that these legislatures will simply say enough is enough, and we are going to choose the electors from the state, and we are going to discern what the voters actually wanted to happen. That's what is going on. This arena is what people really need to be paying attention to, because Donald Trump has no problem, and the Republican Party has no problem with thrusting America into a constitutional crisis, because it is their desire to hold on to power regardless of what happens.
You know, I've got a slight smile on my face because I know what's really at play here, right? And it's they want that crisis so they can litigate their way out of it. They can use these courts through which Donald Trump has got his people in. Okay, look, there's so many examples. Just look at the past 4 years, but particularly look at the past 4 months. There's so many good cases that tell us that these are Donald Trump's judges. It was always about the judges' role. And this is always what it's been about in electing this, two-time philandering fool. He's a fraudster. He's, a schmuck who basically has gotten so good at conning folks. And this is how he's doing it. He's using the courts to get his way. So yes, Republicans want that constitutional crisis. They thump the Constitution, but they do what they wish will. They would do what they will with it. And their wish essentially is to disenfranchise voters who look like us. They do not want us to have what they have. This is about a tale of two Americas. I've said it over and over again these past few years. There is not one America in which we are equal to white people. And this is extremely difficult for me to say as a conservative coming up in this career. And I've always held myself at the same standard, but what I've seen in what Donald Trump has done in using our judiciary for his gains, I have seen very clearly that many a conservative is okay with that if it means that they go untouched, if their lives are unimpacted. So therefore, if the lives of others are impacted, okay. That's a casualty. But we will litigate this the way we want so that we will get the justices that we want. That's what it's always been about. I realize that sounds like a very elementary argument. I'm making an overly simplistic, perhaps, analysis of the situation. But it's very, very important that we talk to our friends and family who may even think that he is not the threat to the Constitution that he is. It's very, very important that we speak to them in simple terms about it. This is a constitutional crisis that they are welcoming.
Scott, I'm reading this here. This is from the Atlantic piece. The worst case, however, is not that Trump rejects the election outcome. The worst case is that he uses his power to prevent a decisive outcome against him. If Trump sheds all restraint, and if his Republican allies play the part he assigns them, he could obstruct the emergence of a legally unambiguous victory for Biden in the Electoral College and then in Congress. He could prevent the formation of consensus about whether there is any outcome at all. He could seize on that uncertainty to hold on to power. Trump's state and national legal teams are already laying the groundwork for post-election maneuvers that would circumvent the results of the vote count in battleground states. Ambiguities in the Constitution and logic bombs in the Electoral Count Act make it possible to extend the dispute all the way to Inauguration Day, which would bring the nation to a precipice. The 20th Amendment is crystal clear. That the president's term in office shall end at noon on January 20th, but the two men could show up to be sworn in. One of them would arrive with all the tools and power of the presidency already in hand. This is why, Scott, I have made it clear to people that the vote in states cannot be close. There has to be no doubt. If Joe Biden beats Donald Trump by 200,000, 300,000, or 400,000 votes in Florida or North Carolina and Georgia, then you're not going to have these games because it will be no doubt. That is how you beat this thug and his Republican imps at their own game.
Yeah, we got to do it. As you were reading that piece in Atlantic, I was thinking, so where's the military going to be on this? Because we're going to be in crisis and like a third world junta. Let's just see what the military is going to be on this. I tell you what else this begs, though, as a question, is the importance of the Senate races. Because if the Senate turns to Democrat and the House stays Democratic, then if he pulls any of these maneuvers with the electors at the state level, that will be challenged in state court and all the way to the Supreme Court. But it's got to be done by January 1st. And depending on if the electors are selected by the state legislature, they're right. That would be a lot quicker, but it would be under legal challenge. But if the Senate and the House both have run by the Dems, then there's more maneuvering after January 1st that both houses could do to either impeach him or remove him. But we've never had an unpeaceful transfer of power. If we get to January 1st at noon and there's no declared winner, what do we do? You're right, two could show up, but that's just borders on the nonsensical. That makes no sense. And so the Democrats have to be as prepared as the Republicans are in laying this groundwork. But I agree, we're going to be in constitutional crisis, and I have no doubt that Trump, if it's close, he's not leaving, or we're going to have to throw him out or impeach him again.
What we are seeing, Robert, we're seeing again Trump and the Republicans try to use all these tactics. They are suing folks in Pennsylvania, suing folks in Georgia, and what they hope is they hope these federal judges agree with them, and what their game plan is to appeal every decision up to the Supreme Court. That's why they want to seat this justice so bad, because they want a 6-3 majority, and if John Roberts chooses to go the way of the liberal justices, then they still have a 5-4 win. That is their strategy, Robert Patillo.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I remember being in law school and being outside picketing the Supreme Court during one of my summer internships when John Roberts was up for confirmation, because we thought he would be the most far right-wing justice on the court at the time, and here he is now the swing justice on the court. It's not because he got any more liberal during the time he's been on the court. It's because the court has gone so far to the far right that now what we used to think was a radical conservative on the court is now the moderate swing voice on the court. And let's also remember, it was just a couple months ago that Supreme Court ruled that and the electors have to go along with what the state says. That you cannot have rogue electors. You cannot go against what the state has voted for, what the state has decided for you. So we're no longer, they've stripped the electors themselves of having the power to step away from what's been said and to vote their own hearts and vote their own conscience, vote their own minds. So yes, we are set up for a constitutional crisis. We're going to have back-to-back constitutional crises. One on the replacement of Justice Ginsburg on the court, which is going to be a constitutional crisis, and we're not quite certain how that battle is going to go. And then secondarily, if the election is even within sniffing distance, because last time Hillary won by 3 million votes, and there was still consternation, and we're not going to see a situation where Republicans do the honorable thing like Al Gore did and just concede, or do the honorable thing like John Kerry did and not have a recount in Ohio because it was what was in the best interest of the nation. These people are going to fight and claw, because what they're fighting for is something very different than what Democrats are fighting for. Democrats want health care. We want a clean environment. We want education for our children. We want a foreign policy that is humble. We want the regular things in politics. Listen to what they were talking about at the Republican convention. Listen to Matt Gaetz. Listen to Charlie Kirk. They're talking about a fight in defense of Western civilization, that the last man standing between the mob, between the hordes, between the immigrants, between America being overrun by minorities is Donald Trump. This is the American carnage that Donald Trump talked about in his inaugural address. So we can't pretend that we're fighting the same fight and that we're fighting by the same rules. Democrats are still playing by the traditional rules of politics. The Republicans right now are fighting the battles of the Holy Roman Empire. They're fighting against the mongrel hordes and the Umayyad Caliphate. They think that they are in an existential crisis for the future of whiteness in this country, and it will be a white majority nation going forward. And because of that, they are willing to use every tool in the basket, and don't expect them to just lie down and do the right thing.
Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, she joins us right now. Latasha, we are seeing black folks in Georgia right now, 1.1 million ballots. They still are requesting ballots there. I was reading Ron Brownstein on Twitter. He said that polling data is showing that black people there are sort of still trying to decide, do I vote by mail or do I vote in person? And a lot of people are actually trending towards voting in person because they're not trusting this process, especially with all the different rules that you got to do this and do that and follow all these procedures. What are you seeing and hearing as y'all are traveling all across the South on the Black Voters Matter bus?
That's exactly what we're hearing as well. People are concerned about the mailing in their ballots. They're also concerned about will they be counted. Also, if they get them in time. In our primary, there were hundreds of people, possibly even thousands. We don't even know the exact number of people who requested an absentee ballot and didn't get it in time. And people don't want to take that chance. So what we've been hearing is a lot of concern on the ground around around mailing in their ballots if it will be counted. But what is even more egregious is that there are 200,000 voters who were unrighteously taken off, illegally taken off the voting rolls in Georgia. That Greg Palazzo, who was an investigative journalist, did a report for ACLU, and it came out about 2 weeks ago saying these 200,000 voters.
No. Right. There were 300,000 that were purged. 200,000 were in error. So they actually purged 300,000.
They actually purged 320,000, absolutely. And it was 200,000 are in error. You know, what makes matters worse is that all this time, even those of us that were been pushing and telling him that he needed to put them back, that he kept demanding that he wanted the list. What is interesting is that we were like, no, our experts will sit with your experts to try to figure out, how could you be so wrong? How could you have 200,000 names that were off the list? Who is your licensee? The National Voting Rights Act requires that there's a licensee that when you're clearing the list, that those names that are change of address, it can't just be a list that they come up with. You can't even get it from the Postal Service. You have to get a licensee, which is a vendor, an outside vendor, to really be able, they verify like 200 pieces of information to really be able to have this list that they come up with. And so all this time, we've been thinking that he just didn't want to give that information. In an interview that he did with CNN, it was revealed that he doesn't even have a licensee. So technically, it is just completely wrong. Not only is the information wrong, but it is illegal. Not is it only is illegal that he did it, but it was illegal in the process. He's never had a licensee to really be able to give him that list. So we don't know where he got this 200,000 names that are really wrong. And so right now he should put those folks back on the polls immediately, and we're demanding.
All right, folks, back to our Roll Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.